Okay, so Harmony is the first video I'm creating for you to help you out with what you've missed. I'm going to talk a little bit about Chapter 1. Looking back at what we did with Chapter 1, everything you need, almost everything you need, I'm going to share a little bit with you, but almost everything you need is right there on PowerSchool. There is a PowerPoint that where I've taken information from the textbook and put it into a PowerPoint. And then there's a set of question prompts based on that PowerPoint, okay? That's all we did in Chapter 1. I did not do any instruction on that PowerPoint or those question prompts. The students just used the PowerPoint to do the question prompts. But one thing that will appear on the Chapter 1 assessment deals with the Declaration of Independence. And so I want you to know about what we did with the Declaration of Independence. So there's three main purposes in the Declaration of Independence, okay? The first one is obviously to declare independence from England. And actually, let me backtrack a second. The Declaration of Independence wasn't written until 1776. The American War for Independence had begun in 1775 with Lexington and Concord. So approximately a year later, it occurred to the members of the Second Continental Congress, who were acting as our first national government in carrying out the war. They raised an army, they built a navy, they sent and received ambassadors with foreign countries. They did the things that a national government normally would do in wartime. And it occurred to them that they were fighting this war and they needed to clarify why they were rebelling against Great Britain. And in the debate after the writing of the Declaration of Independence, the debate in the Second Continental Congress to accept it and to ratify it, there were still people who weren't ready to break away from England at first. Eventually, they got full support from all the 13 colonies. So this wasn't an easy thing. So they decided to write the Declaration of Independence. And again, there's three purposes. Number one, to declare independence from Great Britain. The second one is a little bit more involved. The second purpose of the Declaration of Independence was to rationalize or to explain to explain, I guess, rationalize, explain is the best way to put it, why the colonies were breaking away or why they were declaring their independence. Because if the colonists lose this war and they are captured, the leaders especially, they would be treated as traitors. And so in an effort to explain why they were doing what they were doing with the hopes that should they lose the war, Great Britain and other countries around the world would recognize them not as rebels, but as people who were justified. That's the other word I was looking for before. The Declaration of Independence helped to justify why they were breaking away. Then maybe other countries would put pressure on Great Britain not to treat them as traitors. And so there was a very practical reason, this second purpose, to rationalize or justify the breaking away from England. And the part of the Declaration that covers this is a part, and the first part of this is pretty much word for word, but the rest of it I'm paraphrasing a little bit. But there's a part of the Declaration of Independence that says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Side note, some people believe that included slaves, some people at that time. Some people at that time did not believe it included slaves, but that's just a side note. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That when these rights are oppressed or not protected by a monarch, by a king, by a government, it becomes the right of the people, the responsibility of the people to abolish or replace that government with a government that will protect those rights. And so right in that part of the Declaration of Independence, and there is a copy of the Declaration of Independence posted on PowerSchool that you can look at, and you can see that part. Thomas Jefferson, the main author of the Declaration, is justifying, rationalizing why the colonies are breaking away, why they are declaring their independence from Great Britain. And they are saying that King George has not protected those rights. Now, another side note that you should be aware of, and it's related to one of the other assignments. A lot of what Thomas Jefferson wrote about came from the Enlightenment thinkers. And the Enlightenment thinkers, and again, there's an assignment there, so I'm giving you a little bit of information about that as well. The Enlightenment thinkers that we're talking about are Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Baron de Montesquieu. Now, Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau all talked about social contract. Locke also talked about natural rights. His idea of natural rights was life, liberty, and property. Thomas Jefferson borrowed that to say life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But Jefferson and the revolutionary leaders borrowed heavily from these Enlightenment thinkers. Thomas Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau all talked about social contract. And in their mind, a social contract is an agreement between the people and the government whereby the government or the people give over some power to the government so that government can protect the society, can protect the country, can protect the people. For Hobbes, the ideal government for that was a monarchy because he believed a king was best suited to protect against the violence and conflict that Hobbes believed was natural to human nature, and that humans, if not protected by a king, they would be in a constant state of war. For Locke, it was a representative or Republican style of government, a Republican or representative style of democracy, where the people elect representatives to go and govern for them. They turn over that power to those elected officials. The social contract is with the people they elect because it's not feasible in a Republican style for everyone to participate in what we would call a direct democracy. And that takes us to Rousseau, because Rousseau talked about social contract in the context of a direct democracy where everyone participated in every decision. And that's just not possible. That's not rational or not feasible or efficient, even for countries in the 18th century. It worked in ancient Greece, but in ancient Greece, where they used a direct democracy, all citizens could vote and be part of every decision, but not everybody that lived in Greece was a citizen. Only landowners were citizens. So it's a little bit not quite clear unless you understand that direct democracy, even there, was on a much smaller scale than the entire country of even Greece or the Greek city-states. And then Montesquieu talked about separation of powers and checks and balances. So we borrowed heavily from those Enlightenment thinkers. And so when Thomas Jefferson is writing the Declaration of Independence, he's writing with those guys in mind. And so when he says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, he is borrowing directly this concept of natural rights. He's borrowing directly from John Locke. So we've got two purposes so far. The first purpose to declare independence. The second purpose to rationalize or justify why the colonists felt they were why they're entitled or justified to declare that independence. And then the third purpose of the Declaration was to describe what the new government would look like, the new format or the new structure of this government, what that new structure would look like. So it's important then that you understand that part, the Declaration of Independence, and those three purposes. I gave you a little bit of background information on the Enlightenment thinkers. There's an activity that you can do without any other further instruction to do that Enlightenment activity. Okay, and then for the rest of chapter 1, you're just going to have to look at that PowerPoint when you can, a little bit at a time, and respond to those question prompts. I didn't do any additional instruction for that other than to provide the PowerPoint and those question prompts. So that's what you can do to wrap up chapter 1. Hopefully this little video has helped you. As I said in the email, I will endeavor to do a similar video, which will be a little bit longer, over Chapter 2, the study guide in Chapter 2, because we did do a study guide in Chapter 2 where students, again, had some notes and they used the notes to complete the study guide, but then I went back through that study guide, and I'll do that for you as well. It's going to probably take a couple videos because these videos are limited in length, and the longer they are, the harder it is to upload. So I might do those in a couple, and I hope to start that, if not this afternoon, maybe tomorrow afternoon. I'll get at least one of them done over the weekend. You can start looking at those. Okay. So hopefully this is helpful, and look for these. Oh, there's a page at the bottom of our class, and now you will look at, you are part of the dual enrollment class, so you'll look at that class instead of the AP. That's the one that should show up on your PowerSchool. Let me know if it doesn't, and I'll move the page over to the AP one, but you should be on the dual enrollment side now. And that's where these videos will be. It says Harmony. Okay, that's the page that I created, so that's where I'll post the videos. All right, have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.